Welcome to the launch event of Living Languages. Thank you very much for joining us on this very important International Mother Language Day. I am Luis Amaral, and I am an associate professor of Hispanic and Portuguese linguistics at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And I have the pleasure to have two of my other colleagues who are working also on the journal here with me today, who introduce themselves. So, Jorge.
Thank you, Luis. My name is Jorge Emilio Rosas Labrada, and I'm an assistant professor of Indigenous Language Sustainability at the University of Alberta in Canada. And it's been a real pleasure to work on the journal over the last year, so I'm excited about the launch event. Gabriela?
Yes, thank you. Welcome. My name is Gabriela Perez Baez. I'm an associate professor of linguistics at the University of Oregon, which is situated on Kalapuya Iliji, which are the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people, the first peoples of the Willamette Valley, whose descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. And what we'll do today is we'll do a brief 15 to 20 minute event to launch this new journal, Living Languages, Lenguas Vivas, Línguas Vivas, which is an international open access multilingual journal dedicated to the revitalization and sustainability of indigenous and minoritized languages. Our aim for today is to share with a broad audience of interested readers and potential contributors the philosophy of the journal. So I'll start by explaining why we chose today's date for the launch. Then I'll introduce the goals and philosophy of the journal, and then we'll turn it over to my colleague Luis to describe the different types of publications that Living Languages publishes, and to show you the journal's website. And then our guest regional editor, Jorge, will provide an overview of the journal's first volume, which is now available for open access download. So let me start by, reminding everyone that there are about 7,000 or more than 7,000 languages around the world, and most are endangered due to economic, political, cultural, and social pressures. And in response, members of language communities around the world are actively working to sustain their languages, and they are joined by linguistic rights advocates, educators, scholars, policymakers, and the general public worldwide. We chose today's date to launch Living Languages in observance of International Mother Language Day, as called for by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Mother Language Day has been observed internationally since the year 2000, and today is an especially auspicious day because, in addition, 2022 is the first year in the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, called for by the United Nations to run from 2022 to 2032. So it is with the intent to contribute to global efforts to ensure the sustainability of the world's linguistic diversity that we, as an international team of scholars and linguistic rights advocates, came together to conceive the journal Living Languages. So the primary focus of the journal is to bring together a diversity of voices, of experiences in language revitalization. Living Languages is a peer-reviewed publication venue, but it is not limited to academic contributions and is inclusive of a diversity of perspectives and forms of expression. We are especially interested in publishing work by members of language communities working to sustain their languages and who may want to share their experiences in revitalization with other practitioners from around the world. In an effort to contribute to the expansion of the domains of use for indigenous and minoritized languages, those very languages that are being revitalized, Living Languages accepts contributions in any language being revitalized, and also at this time in 3 lingua francas, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Living Languages is an international journal, an electronic journal that is accessible online. It is also open access, and therefore there are no fees for publishing nor for downloading the articles. In order to be inclusive of a diversity of authors and readers, Living Languages is designed to publish different types of publications, and I'll turn it over to Luis to share with you the details of those types of publications.
Thank you, Gabriela. Yes. So in order for the journal to achieve the goals mentioned by Gabriela, right, we decided that we needed different types of articles to be published in the journal. So I'll just briefly describe them, and then I'll show you some information about them on the website. The first type of article that we publish is called chronicles, right? And these papers share narratives, testimonials, and experiences in language revitalization scenarios. These contributions are intended as a forum for language communities and their members that want to support other revitalizationists by sharing their experiences. So this here is really a type of paper that you would use to describe experiences and the work that's been done by the local activists and communities and what they've been doing to revitalize their language. The other type of paper that we published is called a research paper. So that's more the one that we are used to finding in academic journals. Research papers should explicitly focus on practical and theoretical topics in language revitalization and sustainability. That's very important. We do understand that approaches to language revitalization are multi-pronged and may require a multitude of customized actions based on different disciplines. When using methodological and theoretical frameworks from another discipline, authors should establish the connections with the body of research and the methodological issues in language revitalization. That's very important for the research papers. It's also important to mention here that Living Languages is a journal dedicated to revitalization, which means that we do not intend to replace other journals that are out there that deal with issues of indigenous language education, for example, or linguistic anthropology, or language description, or documentation, right? So here the focus is really on language revitalization. So all of those areas are extremely important and have contributed enormously to the field. But whenever submitting a paper to this journal, the authors are truly encouraged to make this connection to the work that's being done to revitalize the language, okay? The other type of paper that we published is called project descriptions, and the idea is the following. So revitalization project descriptions are sort of brief 10-page long texts that present project proposals at different stages, from the conceptualization phase to their implementation and evaluation. The primary difference between a project description and a chronicle is the stage of the work. Chronicles should report on current or past experiences, and project descriptions are plans for future work or work in progress that's being undertaken by a given community or group of scholars. The idea here is that if you want any feedback if the community or a group of scholars is planning a project and wants some feedback and want to publish their ideas and get some feedback on their ideas before they submit to funding agencies. So here is a possibility for them to present that to the world and then go after funding for their projects. And the last type of articles or papers or types of contributions actually that we plan to publish is an annual volume on pedagogical materials, right? So this is intended as a venue in which revitalizationists can showcase materials they have created. The goal is to facilitate the exchange of ideas and resources and create a repository that can be accessed by a larger international audience. This special volume welcomes materials that have been published before. Okay, so here it really is the idea to showcase. We have seen wonderful work being done in different communities, creating new materials, but then that never reaches other communities or sometimes in other parts of the world, right? So here we want to publish those materials. One way to find more information about all of that is to go to our website. So let me show you here the website of the journal that's already online, and you can start downloading the papers that Jorge is going to show you in a minute. So quite briefly, so here you see this is the home page, and here on the left you have the About This Journal in English. We also have versions in Spanish and in Portuguese here. And on this page here, you're going to find the basic description of the journal, principles and philosophy, as Gabriela has already described and talked about. Who can submit? This is very important for us. The submission process is not limited and should not be limited to people in academia, to people who are grad students or professors or researchers, right? So this is, we want to open the journal also for people from who are working in the communities, who are doing the work of revitalization, to submit their work and share their wonderful ideas with other people around the world. So here you have the types of submission as I was describing, and I would encourage you, if you are thinking about submitting a paper in one of these categories, to come here and click here. And what it would do is that it would open a PDF that you can download. And here you have more information about the description of the type of contribution, some ideas for content, what do we expect from each type of contribution, right? And as you can see, each one of the contribution types has a link here that you can download the information from. We also have this section here on formatting requirements, right? So here you download the style sheet of the journal for you to prepare your manuscript for submission. And here's just the general rights and responsibilities of authors. One thing it's important to mention is that this is an open access journal, as Gabriela has said. So all content is freely available without charge to the user or any institution. So authors have to agree that once they submit to this journal, that this is going to be publicly and freely available, right? So I encourage you to visit the website, take a look there. Before I go, I just wanted to quickly show two more things. One of them is here, the editors page. We have a unique way of organizing our editorial group. We have several editors working and on the different papers from different parts of the world here, and we are truly grateful for each one of them that has contributed tremendously to this first volume. And a special thanks to the members of our initial editorial board. So we have people here from also different countries, speakers of different languages, people that come from different communities or different institutions, right? And we are very glad to see this group of people coming together and helping us and supporting the work of the journal. So thank you very much. One final thing, if you're interested in submitting an article, just click here. It's going to ask you to create a new account if you don't have an account with ScholarWorks, right? But I just want to say, since we have other sessions in Portuguese and Spanish, but for people who speak other languages other than English and want to submit and want to make an account, create an account and submit their article here, you can actually use, so we have incorporated this button here that actually helps you, for example, using Google Translate, translate that into different languages, right? Also for speakers of Portuguese and Spanish, when you get to this part here of the website, you could use this button to facilitate navigation, okay? So this is the website as is right now. We're very excited about it. And the last thing we need to show you is, I'll pass it to Jorge, who will introduce the first volume, the contributions that we have for our first volume. Jorge.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Gabriela. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk to you about the papers in our first volume, which focus on 10 different communities from all over the Americas. And in keeping with our multilingual policy for publication, you see that some of the papers are published in English, some are published in Spanish, some are published in Portuguese, and then some are also published in indigenous languages. And in this volume, we have two of those. One that is written in Caigan, which is a Jel language of Brazil, and the other one in Chickasaw, which is a Musqueam language of the southern or southeastern US. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to give you kind of a brief tour of the first volume. What you see is that this volume has multiple research articles and chronicles, but we also have two invited contributions. One is by Bruna Franchetto and the other one is by Luis Enrique Lopez. And they both give overviews about linguistic vitality and identification. In particular, Lopez calls our attention to the growth over many decades of populations that are trying to do either self-discovery, self-identification, or self-representation. And one thing that I really liked is that he emphasizes the role that young people play in these types of movements. In both articles, Bruna and Luis Enrique both discuss the role that the journal could play as an ally by providing opportunity for a plurality of voices and perspectives to be heard. And their articles, I think, do just that. Some of them focus on different methodologies. So we have the article by Itsiri Moreno Villamar, which is published in two versions, one Spanish version and also an English version. And that focuses on the revitalization of Purépecha, which is a language from Mexico, but it focuses on the language as used in diaspora in the US. And she discusses a methodological approach called community-based language planning, where they did multiple workshops for teaching the language as a second language. And this could be an article that, for example, would be relevant to other diaspora communities. There is another article that also deals with diaspora context, and that's the one by Cindy Garcia Huyendat and Odalis Lopez de la Rosa. And so this is a parallel case study. The revitalization of the language is Wixárika, which is also a language of Mexico. And these speakers are also in diaspora, but within Mexico. We also have other methodological approaches. So the article by Verona Yepes Reyes, Karina Ortiz Pacheco, and Marcelo Moriano discusses the methodology of service learning as applied to the context of the revitalization of Quechua in Ecuador. We have also an article by Ernesto Garcia Estrada and Leonardo Porras Cabrera, who use the methodology of theater but applied to linguistics, and particularly theater of the oppressed, and how that applies to speakers of Boran in Costa Rica. The article by Juliana Kenfield, for example, offers a personal narrative that reflects on the factors, sociopolitical, family level ones, collective ones, that would contribute to turning the speaker of Quechua into an activist for her language. And finally, also we have, and this kind of variety of approaches, the article by Daniela Costa, who focuses on the valorization and recognition of artistic expressions, cultural traditions, and ceremonies of indigenous peoples in Ecuador. We have 4 more articles in the volume. The article by Marcia Nascimento is the article that is published in Caigan and has an introduction in Portuguese. And it presents a culture and language nest, which is has taken place, has been organized in the indigenous territory Nonai in the south of Brazil. And this is based on the experience of language nests in other parts of the world, including New Zealand, through a method of total immersion. The article by Carrie Chu and Lokosh is a bilingual article that is in Chickasaw and English, and gives a historical perspective of all of the efforts that the Chickasaw community in Oklahoma has undertaken to revitalize their language. And this includes the creation of dictionaries up to now the curriculum in their public schools, in the nation's public schools. The article by Javier Allende, in turn, tells us the origins of the Sachila nationality in Ecuador, and the revitalization efforts for their language, Safiki. Finally, the article by Gustavo Godoy and Cristina Valyakova offers an analysis of all of the language documentation activities that have taken place with the last fluent speakers of Wato, a language in the Brazilian Pantanal, and how all of these projects are geared towards maintenance and revitalization of the language in their territory. I want to finish with an invitation for you to listen, or rather read, this plurality of voices and experiences. And I hope, and I'm sure we all hope, that you will take something away for your own revitalization efforts. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jorge. And I too will just give a few closing words before turning things over to Luis. And that is that, again, we are really looking forward to a diversity of contributions, especially those contributions from the very people who are on the ground in their communities working to support their languages, whether they are affiliated with academic institutions or not. Living Languages is designed to be as inclusive as possible, and we hope that the way we've conceived of the journal will indeed invite all of these voices, so that these voices, these experiences can be shared around the world, and we can all learn how we can all be active in sustaining linguistic diversity around the world. So we look forward to your contributions, and we invite you to take a look at this first volume and download free of charge any of the articles we've published. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Gabriela, very much. Okay, so yes, so thank you very much for being here with us today. I would like to remind everyone that the link to this video is going to be available like in 30-40 minutes. It's going to be available online. So I would ask you please to share that with anyone who would be interested in revitalization, or people that want to publish their work, want to spread the information about what they've been doing, so that other people can learn from them. One final thing that I'd like you all to remember is that this journal aims to disseminate work on minority language revitalization, such as the various indigenous languages of the Americas. But we don't want to limit the focus of this journal to the Americas. We know that the first volume was primarily focused on contributions from South America, Central America, and North America. But we want to encourage people from other parts of the world, from Africa, Europe, and Australia, and Asia, and New Zealand, to submit papers to be published and share their experiences here using living language. Okay, one final thing is that you can also ask questions later on here in the chat, or later on the video, and we'll be happy to answer. Visit the website, and thank you very much for helping us spread the word and support very important language revitalization work.